My name is Eric Brooke. Welcome to CTO Wisdom. Here today we have Alexis. Alexis, tell us what your elevator pitch is.
Hello, Eric. So my name is Alexis Smirnov. I'm fundamentally I'm an engineer by training and by career. I like to build things. I started. I went to school, and, studied maths and theoretical physics back in Moscow, and then moving to Montreal, finished a Université de Montréal with computer science degree, and really progressed through my career as a software engineer in various forms of what that means. Doesn't necessarily means just coding. It means various things, and then later the last kind of chapter of my career is I became a co-founder and CTO of Dialogue. It's a Canadian company that offers tech-enabled services for companies in health tech space.
Cool. I'd love to know a little bit more about Dialogue. Being a Canadian, I'd love to hear some Canadian good stories.
Well, listen, it's a great story, and we're so proud to be able to offer these services to Canadians. Historically, access to healthcare has been a really big issue for Canadians. We started in Montreal, so in Quebec it was even harder in some other provinces, and that problem persisted for so many years. So it's a problem that consistently with us. So in 2016, we looked at this situation. We looked at the technology that we have available in terms of live video, in terms of chatbots, in terms of connectivity and adoption of mobile phones, and it was clear to us that there was a better way to remove and reduce barriers to great care. And so we started a virtual care company where we would build the technology, hire medical professionals, and start providing primary care services to employees. And the way we did it is we would go to businesses and offer them a corporate benefit so that their employees can get an app on their phone to see the doctor, get a prescription, get a referral to a lab, get a follow-up, and get better so much quicker. And so that's how we started in 2016. Since then, we've added more services, more of these tech-enabled services into the same experience and really built out an integrated health platform. By now, we're serving about 15% of Canadians. So it's about 6 million people have access to Dialogue. It's amazing to hear stories from people I've never met, maybe in a cafe or somewhere, that rave about Dialogue and their kind of first experience with virtual care, and that's really hooks you up when you end up building something that's so meaningful to so many people. It really transforms the way you think about your career.
It's great to have that purpose beyond just the technology and all the curiosity and all of the problems. It's great to have that. And I believe also that you recently have formed a partnership with Sun Life and that you're starting to head into the US. Is that correct?
That is true. So one of the things that we set off to build at Dialogue is a really strong technology platform that powers the services that we take to market. Of course, if you think about the service itself, the medical service, you have to have licensed professionals that have the right to practice medicine in a particular country. But technology behind these services knows no boundaries. And the problem space of delivering this digital services or digital health services, or creating a digital front door to a range of services, those problems are in fact universal. And so we had an opportunity to present this technology to Sun Life US. It's a division of a Sun Life and a global company who were looking to build a digital front door to the services that they would provide to their members, as well as some of the third-party companies that provide point solutions. They wanted to integrate it all into a seamless experience and increase that engagement with their members. So they were looking for a technology partner, and that's what's fun about this story is that we built the tech for ourselves. We built it because we are operating these services in Canada. But for an engineer, it's so satisfying and kind of it's a proud moment when somebody else look at the technology you've built for yourself and say, "Look, I can actually use that." So I think a lot of people kind of know that moment when they push an open source product out there and people start picking it up and using it. It's a little bit like that.
It's great that you're able to help our brothers and sisters and others from America as well. I love that. So, Alexi, I would love to dig into your history a little bit more. It's great news to hear about Dialogue, and I wish you every success with that. And obviously, we'll probably touch on that as we travel our journey for your career. So, how did you start in technology? What was the passion or the curiosity that got you started onto a keyboard for a computer at some time in your life?
So my journey actually started not in front of a keyboard of a computer, but a programmable calculator. That was the only programmable device I could get my hands on when I was growing up back in Moscow. In the age of 14, at the time there was next to impossible to get Western electronics into Russia. So Russian industry kind of cloned a Texas Instrument, a programmable calculator. And that was a big moment because that was the first programmable device that a consumer, somebody who just lives in Moscow, can actually go and buy after standing a long line, to get that calculator. So that's how I started. There was actually a community of people of programmers that emerged around that little tiny device. There were games that were created on the programmable calculator. In fact, even offline parallel multiplayer games with a scientific journal as the mean to exchange your scores. When you're traveling from an Earth to a moon in a rocket ship and consuming fuel. This is the kind of games that you can actually program on a calculator and then publish your results in a scientific paper and run the score. So it's so pre-internet. Then I got really a good fortune to intern at the Space Research Institute. So it's a Russian analog of NASA. And at the time, the laboratory I was with, it's an image processing laboratory, was working on a Sojourner rover. So Sojourner rover is a rover that was sent to Mars, and it's effectively an electric self-driving vehicle on Mars. So it's got cameras, and it decides how to navigate between rocks. So I've been fortunate to work right inside of that amazing lab of real software engineers. So that's how I got started.
Awesome. So tell us, beyond your journey, where did you go? Becoming a programmer, a software engineer, like a developer? Like, what happened next in your career?
Well, what happened next is I was kind of pushed into somewhat technology entrepreneurship, and not because of some kind of a calling, but simply because the Russian society was imploding, and there wasn't really much opportunities to build things and then make a living building these things. So I was um, I was engaged in a number of different projects, either building a game or building a computer visualization system, and then selling these visualizations. So it was really entrepreneurship out of need. When we moved to Montreal, I finished my studies in Université de Montréal. Um, I then an amazing break. Microsoft just acquired a company called Softimage in Montreal. So essentially, there was an outpost of Microsoft right where I lived, and it was a combination of both best of kind of two best worlds for me. That amazing company that is all about software engineering, and the Softimage being an amazing company that pioneered the tools of computer graphics for Hollywood movies. This was the company that built the tools that made the famous Jurassic Park dinosaur scenes and other kind of pioneering movies. And so I got a lucky break to got hired as a software engineer at Softimage, and the project was to effectively port Softimage from Linux to Windows. And so all new code, all new technology. So that was at the time when a lot Microsoft was the biggest deal in the tech world, and growing very quickly. So we had tremendous amounts of resources. So that's where I kind of learned the craft of software engineering and learned the dynamics of working on large scale engineering projects as part of a large team.
Wonderful. So keep us going. Like, what happens next? That sounds wonderful.
Well, what happens next is an incremental increase in impact. So when you're a software engineer, you see some opportunities, you see new ways of perhaps implementing a feature, or you see a new way to repurpose a system to provide more services within a product. It was at the time when computer graphics tooling itself was not. It was still a nascent industry. It was growing. So I had an opportunity to actually invent a few things and patent a few things around how these systems are working. Before you know it, I'm a team lead of a small team that is responsible for a subset of this large scale system, Softimage. So Softimage had a modeling component where you model your 3D scene, an animation component that they were famous for, where you make these 3D models kind of come alive. And then finally, the rendering component, when you shade them and color them and really make them look real. And so I was responsible for that application, for the rendering step, and so it was a great way to learn how to build something kind of end to end, but being part of a larger whole. So because we had certain use cases that were really focused on rendering, so you were responsible for kind of delivering something end to end. Yet you had to collaborate and kind of end up being compatible with the rest of the system. So both of those skills is something to develop, is how to build things end to end and how to build things that are part of a larger whole. So I had an opportunity to do that as a team lead at Microsoft.
What was it like being a team lead? Can you remember the differences between 1 minute you're person coding and the next minute you're now responsible for a lot more communication with stakeholders? Do you remember any of the lessons that you learned to that point of your career?
So it's a team lead at Microsoft at the time was an individual contributor with additional responsibilities. So it wasn't a job where you stopped coding. No, in fact you coded just like an individual contributor, but you also had to develop talent around you. You also had to recruit and grow that team, and also had to help people with their engineering decisions, and code review. So really develop a few folks. I had a very small team. I think it was like 5 people, but it added that additional responsibility without really removing responsibility on as a key contributor to the code. And so it was easy for me to slide back into the individual contributor mode. And at the time, I really didn't kind of promote myself to the role of a team lead, where I would say, okay, so now I've got this other part of my responsibility is to help and support these folks. I consider this to be more like a nuisance, and kind of a distraction from what I'm really supposed to be doing is pushing the technology forward. And that was, it took me quite some time to kind of promote myself like that. And that didn't help people around me. Like, the software engineers around me weren't really growing, and they weren't like the best ones from the if Microsoft was famous for this brutal staff ranking, or lifeboat exercise type of ranking methodology at the time, where you had to actually compete with other managers about who needs to be ranked higher. So I really didn't develop that muscle, or that wasn't able to articulate that clearly. So I don't think I was a good people manager at the time, but it certainly it certainly taught me that that needs to be viewed as part of your job. And one of the things, kind of a test, if you catch yourself thinking at the end of the day, after spending a day in a whole bunch of meetings with people, trying to figure out like these people issues or performance management, you come back home and think, what did I do? I didn't code anything today. Like, this is a lost day. Like, I'm not moving our product forward. I wish I've contributed. I wish I've fixed that bug that we still have in the code. Like, if you catch yourself thinking that, that's probably mean you're not thinking about this other responsibility that you have on par with the responsibility of being an engineer.
Yes, it's quite a transition going from something that you feel strong in, a skill set that you feel strong in, i.e. coding, and then letting that go to do things that you don't know so well, i.e. people management, and then mentoring and coaching others. It's a journey for all of us, definitely. So after your time as T lead, what happened next?
Well, listen, next, internet happened. So here I am finding myself, running a larger and larger team at Microsoft, doing something that is so not the internet, doing complex data processing, data manipulation tools for rendering of these 3D scenes. So the furthest thing from the internet happens, and I'm like, this thing is passing me by. Like, I need to. This is where the technology is going. So I need to find a way to do it. And again, we're not talking Silicon Valley where there's like a ton of startups all kind of jumping into a .com boom. We're talking about Montreal. So we we had one company that was a truly an internet darling, and a company that was like on the cover page of Wired, etc. There was a company called Zero Knowledge Systems that uh, that was working on the internet privacy. It was so obvious at the time that internet happens, privacy is going to be destroyed. People will revolt. The people will pay a lot of money to maintain their private information, and privacy is going to be such a huge thing on the internet that there has to be a company that is on the forefront of this. Um, they they ended up building what is currently known as Tor. So this onion encryption for transport, where the two nodes don't know the kind of the origin and destination of the message, because it's like triply encrypted and goes through a randomly selected intermediate node. So so Tor is being used today, but how many people use it, right? Or nowadays, we're very far from the advent of the internet. Now we have these technologies embedded in your kind of iOS, where you can hide your IP address, what have you. So it became now kind of a piece of the infrastructure of the internet. But at the time, there was nothing. There was no business. There was a lot of excitement, and a huge amount of money that flew into this whole industry, including that company. So I've joined that company to start an infrastructure an enterprise privacy division. So they already had this Tor called Freedom Network that they were trying to sell directly to consumers, and that was working very well. So thing you do is say, well, let's sell privacy to enterprises. We've I'm very proud of that project as a technology project. We built this rule-based engine to analyze data flows and apply privacy rules to it. We sold one copy of it to E-Trade, and then .com crash happens, and so there you find yourself with an amazing team of dozens of people working on this project. You think is technologically sound and kind of has the right to exist, but the market doesn't care. And it really doesn't matter how elegant or how intricate, how hard of a lift technically that project is or that product is. If no one buys it, it doesn't exist. That's it. It's just like a law of physics. You can't really ignore. So that was a painful moment where I had to let go. Most of my staff, in fact, like most of this team, we had to let go, and the company was going down fast. This is where I started thinking as well. So what is next? Like now it's a completely, like the whole tech field is decimated. There's nothing happening. Nobody's hiring. Like, where do we go from there? And that, if you like, I can tell you the next chapter of my career.
Go ahead. Yeah.
This is a story of relationships that I built at Microsoft, and I didn't really realize that I was building relationships. I was just helping people that I've admired. I was learning from people that knew much more than I knew, and somehow those kinds of interactions created relationships that allowed me to then co-found a startup with ex-Microsoft folks that also kind of moved on and was doing other things. We had about a dozen co-founders. We were that was at so 2000. We when we so that was in 2004, a bit like that. Yeah, 2004 when we started that startup called Pi, and we were completely distributed. So I started being alone in Montreal, and we were essentially like working on ICQ and an MSN Messenger after. So it was a completely remote first project. We would get together in a city and then kind of move and work from home. We started an engineering hub in Bangalore and started hiring there. So we had about 60 people in Bangalore, and so we would commute to Bangalore to work with the team. And so in 4 years, we've maybe I should tell you a bit what that startup was about.
Sure.
If you read Steve Jobs' biography, there was a passage where Steve Jobs articulates the vision for the future where personal information is no longer stored on one's device, but is stored in a cloud, and people can upgrade their devices more easily because these devices, that the personal information survives the times of the lifetime of any particular device. This kind of vision was first articulated to us as co-founders by the guy by the name of Paul Maritz, who is one of the top people in Microsoft. Before he retired, he built Windows, i.e., he fought this IE wars and yet built Windows NT, and so made a tremendous footprint on the software industry. And so he actually articulated that vision years before what the historical record shows Steve Jobs did. So same vision. And so we set up to build a startup on that. And so we built a cloud system before the word cloud existed, where we would store your personal information in the cloud, which is currently known as cloud, and would have a copy or a cached copy on a device, and then the synchronization between all these devices that you have. And so we successfully sold this company to EMC to allow EMC to create a cloud infrastructure division, and it got folded with Mozy and other assets. Now it's part of Dell, but fundamentally it's like that idea of a Dropbox, iCloud, and there's of course usually when there is a technological shift, there's many implementations of the same idea, and you only hear about like one or two remaining. But chances are there was a few of those. So we were one of the few that was working on that problem.
Awesome. So you've gone from like a team lead, you've now done management at a much larger scale. You've also managed managers at this point. Like, were there any things that when you step away from the management of people, from that team lead, that you now know to be true, or that you use as your principle set in terms of leadership of people?
I think it becomes more and more a communication role. It becomes as you move, it becomes a communication of more and more abstract and more kind of remote concepts, remote in the sense of time. So maybe you're describing something that is not going to happen next week, but in 3 months or in a year. So you have to get good at explaining things that don't exist, explaining them in sufficient detail and painting the dots of how one gets to it. Because if you don't do that, then you're just like an abstract visionary and it's not very useful. You need to describe the steps to get there, like both together. If you do that, many times over, and develop that habit of communicating a vision and the steps to get to that vision, that's really, if you can develop that well, it becomes your superpower. That is so helpful for a lot of people, because those stories about the vision and the steps towards that vision really corral people together. Now people can have conversations about first steps, middle steps, the whole sequence. They can find how they can impact this progression towards the vision, and that's how you get most out of people, is when they are working at something that they are the most impactful in. And so when you're working with a manager, you're offering this vision to a manager, and really in some ways you're asking, how can you help? Like, if you think that this is a worthwhile destination, how can you help? And that's where you start engaging others into kind of collective thinking about the vision, the steps, and certainly the other point here is, I'm kind of describing this as if this vision and the steps kind of comes out fully formed and always correct. Of course not. This is a framework that you are trying to get more and more correct around. So both the vision and the steps should keep changing with more input, with more people kind of scrutinizing and questioning all of this. And as a result, you've got a better path forward.
Thank you for that, Alexi. So talk to me about, so you've been a founder at Dialogue for some time. I'm interested in the different stages of, like, when you start at the beginning and where you notice the shifts or the ways that you have to interact with it differently. Because obviously when you started off, you're a small team, and then eventually you grow to a much larger team. So talk to me about the stages of your time at Dialogue.
Well, it's interesting because when you're a co-founder of a company that has no employees, and then there's a couple of people working with you, you're obviously an individual contributor. Even though you have a title like a chief technology officer, like this title means nothing. You're part of three people, three developers who are building the first version of whatever you're building. So forget the title. What sets maybe a co-founders and people who are kind of part of the funding team apart is they have to constantly promote themselves. So my partner Sharif, who's a CEO and co-founder, never promoted me from CTO. So I'm I'm flat. I'm not advancing since the last 7 years. I've not been promoted over the last 7 years, right? So of course that is not the case. But the trick is you have to promote yourself at every step when you're a co-founder, because if you don't, then you are hamstring. You're essentially making so that the company cannot grow faster. And so the trick is to realize when you're hitting the wall because you're operating at a certain level, and when you need to do something else. And that's kind of self-promotion to the next level. Takes forms of, like, you are an individual contributor, so you're coding. I was coding like Terraform, and then Python services, and then React apps, because we had no, like, people. So I was doing all of this, and then a handful of people joined, and then a little bit more. At some point, there is you see that the coordination between these folks is more important than your individual contribution. And it's very hard for somebody external, like for your co-founder to pick up these points and say, you know what, like next week you should be doing more coordination than individual contributor, because you need to have this kind of visibility in the code and the problems they're having. So it's mostly comes from you, and so that repeats itself. Um, when you need to recognize that there's actually several teams that are running in parallel, and so you need to figure out who's going to be leading them, because you can't lead like several teams at once. And then there's this emergence of maybe several subsystems, either layers like front end, back end, or like infrastructure, or several products. We have both at Dialogue, because we serve members, so people with access to these services on their phone, but we also serve service providers who actually provide these services. So that's another persona for us. So it's another set of applications. And we sell the whole shebang to clients, to large employers or partners. And so that's another stakeholder in the persona. So you begin to see the emergence of the org design based on whatever business you're in, and whatever structure the technology takes shape to support the business you're in. And so you need to be thinking about these things. So for us, we never like pivoted. So it was really a constant growth trajectory. So I can't tell you like specific moments. Of course, there are fundraisers and bursts of growth. So of course there are moments like getting going public. Of course, there are moments when your partner, distribution partner, partner in the markets, Sun Life, decides to invest more in the company. There are corporate milestones there that begin to kind of shape your role. But in terms of the engineering, the technology, I think that culture, your job is really to maintain that culture as you kind of move up the organization, while keeping the same kind of title. Move up the organization because you're working with more and more people.
Yeah, thank you for.
And and maybe the conclusion there is that you're becoming an executive of a business. So now that you have a business to run, you're part of the C-suite, and now the life changes again, where you are a technologist with a team of like-minded people that you are leading, and they're building great things, and you're inspired every day what they're doing, and you're also part of a very different team that inspires you in a very different way, and that is a multidisciplinary team where you're the only technologist in the room, where people have an appreciation and an intuition about the technology, but you still have, like, each team member has a different expertise. So that's the team where you have somebody like Naved as CFO, or a chief operating officer, or somebody responsible for go-to-market, sales and partnership. So that team is the C-suite team is very different from your engineering team, because it is heavily cross-functional. And so the game there is to find a way to work together to advance the business forward, so advance this company forward, make it grow faster, by contributing different perspectives into decision making process, into forming a strategy for the company.
As co-founders, you're traveling quite a journey together. Like you're together longer than some people are even married, and you've seen the transition in your colleagues, whether they be CEO or CFO. Were there things when you look back on that, like the importance of maintaining your relationships with people through such growth, can't be easy. When you look back, what are the things that you would say that you've learned along the way? Some you probably knew before because of your career before, but that's a long journey. How do you maintain a relationship for that long? Because you're not always going to agree.
No, you're not. You're not going to agree every time. Well, there's a few things like in marriage, you're not agreeing, all the time either. Um, I think it's first of all, you need to have fundamentally, you need to have a tremendous amount of trust in people you're taking on this adventure together. Um, I got so lucky with my partner, co-founder Sharif, who had this unique combination of a technologist and a business thinker in health tech space. So that made them uniquely positioned to become a CEO of Dialogue, and I attribute a lot of our success to his wisdom. And in healthcare, there's a plenty of problems to solve, and there is plenty of um, ways to solve it, or ideas of how to solve this, that, and the other thing. What's rare is to create a business model that makes a sustainable business where you can earn your right to keep solving that problem and growing. That's rare, especially in Canada, given the kind of how our system is built. But the problems are still tremendous. So it's worthwhile solving them if you can figure out how to build a sustainable business. And that's one of the first contributions that Sharif made to this adventure, is to set us on the path with that sustainable business model where the patient never takes out their credit card to pay for care, and where the employer, in fact, through their benefits budget, contributes the kind of new money into healthcare for the country. We never get money from the government, yet we are providing medical service. And the way we kind of manage to do that is because employers believe it's the right thing to do to provide these services to their employees. And so that's something that I did not come up with. This is the kind of partnership that you're looking for, the kind of partner you're looking for to start a business. And certainly I had a background with building all kinds of systems that I think Sharif found quite complementary as well. But listen, that was like 7 years ago. Now we have a C-suite of absolutely amazing individuals they're working together, making the whole much greater than any of our individual capabilities. And that's now a source of kind of a drive and strategy for the company, is that team. We don't call it C-suite, we call it endurance. The name of that ship of Sir Shackleton.
Awesome. So let's change tack a little bit. When you look at the technology market at the moment, what are you broadly seeing in technology today?
Well, I think that the shift towards AI is obvious. So that part is kind of very obvious. And I think a lot of people, say a lot of things and prognosticate about this. So I'm not going to join. Like I'm as excited as anybody else. So that's a shift that is not a fad. It's a shift that we will see evolve over time. There's one more shift that is a macro shift that is also kind of inescapable, that maybe doesn't get that much airtime, even though it's as present. Um, you remember how tech industry, or even the word tech, was separate from the rest of the society, the rest of the economy, and it was like there's this economy, and then there's this tech, and then we start talking big tech, or like I think we're moving in a world where it becomes inseparable. There's not going to be tech. There's going to be the world economy, and and so every company will become, just like every company is a consumer of electricity. Every company is going to be running on intelligence, uh, running on these cognitive systems, or like consuming those resources, just like they're consuming electricity. So it's that. I think that shifts the way people kind of think about tech, where like, there's this company that writes software, and then there's these other companies that don't write software, and these companies that write software sell the software to these other companies. So I think the lines are blurring, and that's when you're seeing the regulation conversation. How do you regulate in this new world? And it's I think as a technologist, I find this amazing, and I welcome that shift, because at the end of the day, it allows technology to make a bigger positive impact on the world. And if you're a technologist for a long time, I think you're converging in this kind of mental space where you're trying to optimize impact, positive impact to the world, and I certainly do.
Awesome. Is there a problem that you're figuring out now as a CTO that you're open to sharing, that you're digging into and understanding at the moment?
Sure. Yeah. So the game shifted for us as well. As we grow. We've reached profitability a couple of quarters ago, which was a tremendous achievement for a company in health tech. 7 years old. It's it's quite rare, but the tie-in with Sun Life gives us tremendous opportunities in the market. Yeah, but it makes our, like, those opportunities make uh, our company harder um, to kind of articulate a single service or single product where all of our resources point towards that. So you necessarily have to grow via many different avenues. And so balancing between different objectives while maintaining focus of individual teams, that is a challenge. Like, it's so easy to take on a project because it makes a tremendous amount of sense. It's harder to simplify things and reduce the amount of stuff you do. Or in our case, it is. Remember, we're running these services, tech-enabled services. So there is a big component of service delivery. The service operation is a complex machine. So how do you balance the human provision of service with automation and the investment in one or the other? So those are, I think, the balancing between different really attractive opportunities or different pain points that are equally hard or equally kind of acute, that is the current challenge for us.
Yeah. Setting your priorities when you've got so many opportunities. It can be a tough one. Awesome. So one, I've got two more questions for you. One is, what helped you grow? What helps you grow now, and what's helped you scale in your career? What are the ways that you consume knowledge or experience or skills to help you become the next version of yourself?
I owe my growth to people around me. Like it's that simple. That is the biggest source of learning and inspiration and the ability to scale. Um, so some of that is of course how we hire. It's like super hard to get hired at Dialogue, but we are growing the team. We have a range of engineering positions open that I'm looking for candidates, and that's a big part of my job to maintain that quality bar and grow the team. So anybody's interested in working in HealthTech space, please apply. Um, so that is the number one source of learning and an ability to kind of think about oneself or myself from different perspective. You have to certainly listen more to learn from people around you. So that's a uh, big focus area is ability to extract insights from folks that are not here to educate you. They're here to like do the job and move the company forward. That's what they're thinking about. Your personal learning is kind of a byproduct of you being in the same room and extracting lessons. Um, so so that's certainly the biggest one. Um, I I like podcasts because I walk my dog every morning and most nights, and so it's a good time to listen to a podcast or an audiobook. Um, so Lex Friedman podcast is one of the um, on my speed dial. Um, there's another one called Founders, which is a summary of books that so guys essentially doing these quick summer podcast format summaries of books of biographies of founders and entrepreneurs. Amazing resource as well. And I pick here and there different technical podcasts depending on the kind of technology that I'm interested in. So like either like ML ops, LLMs, or prior to that NLP. Um, so when I have a question I want to deep dive, I'll pick up some of the point podcasts there.
Awesome. Thank you. And Alexi, my last question for you. What do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? I find actually work is a lot of fun for me. I enjoy what I do, so I laugh a lot during the day. So that's a big part of my fun. I play table tennis. So that's something I've been doing since around the time, actually earlier than I started programming. So when I was a kid. So that's something I do, and I have two daughters that fill my life with joy and fun. So I enjoy spending time in the family. The other thing that I do for fun, or we do for fun with my wife, Irene and I are kind of design oriented people. So we like designing things, or we like and interior design is one of the things that is our design outlet. So we certainly spend a lot of time, discussing different design alternatives for some future renovation, we might do.
Awesome. Alexi, thank you very much for sharing your story today and sharing your wisdom with us. I appreciate the time.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Eric.